Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Barriers and Boundaries Resilience Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, EB, and I'm excited to have a guest today, Becky Schmooke, author of Choose the Handle That Holds. And goodness gracious, like you're into a lot of things, but first off, how are you today?
Thank you for having me. I'm good. I'm good. This is fun. I'm excited. I do my research on the podcast I'm going to be on, and I've been listening to episodes of yours, and you have such fun guests. I just want to tell you that. Like, you have some really good ones. So I feel like the bar is high. I'm going to do my best to match it.
Well, I'm definitely interested in some more of your background, like partnering with the NFL, and then how much you've dove into Stoicism and you write about in your book, and all the things that I see as resilience. And we have a conversation, and you're like, "Yeah, let's go beyond that." And I'm like, "Great, let's do it." So, but what's some of the backstory with you though? How did you get to a place to write a book?
Yeah. Have you writing a book up next for you for like another one?
I think I think I'm gonna switch to like a fictional story to tie in aspects of leadership. Like that,
I love it.
always like
Fiction
hearing
is
that journey.
the journey. Okay, so yes, I have two businesses, and I promise I can make this real quick and relevant altogether. So, because both businesses are featured within the book and led me there. So, I have one business called Becky's Mindful Kitchen. Is I'm in Iowa, middle of the country, 3 hours west of Chicago. Is usually I describe it. I have an on-site location where I have a commercial teaching kitchen. We raise goats, so we have baby goats every summer, and we have chickens and a whole timber escape. So we have an archery range that I use to teach leadership and teamwork, all that stuff. We have a
That's very
fairy
cool.
tale treehouse, zip lines, ninja course, a lot of neat things out here. And I run summer camps for kids with that business. And so we use cooking and all those other things to teach leadership. I absolutely adore teaching children leadership. And I teach the same concept, and they are often just as good as adults at picking up on those concepts and putting them into action. And the same locations where I do hold team building workshops and leadership retreats. So that's Becky's Mindful Kitchen. And then I have Stoic Edge Consulting, where I do the leadership coaching and consulting and speaking and all that fun stuff and workshops. So they're both very intertwined together. It all comes out of this purpose-driven mindset of mine, or my what I'll get on the soapbox of over and over again is the fact that we have leadership wrong. We have defined it, I think, the wrong way, and we need to redefine it as a lifestyle and not a job title. And the problem is that we still continue to attach the idea of someone being a leader to that job title, regardless of if they're actually good at leadership. And so you look at that person, you're like, well, that must be what leadership is. And so then you get that promotion and you start, again, copying what you saw, and the cycle continues. So that's where I'm really driven, is how can we redefine leadership and assign
Yeah.
it to everybody?
I really appreciate that. What comes to mind for me is this idea of like parenting and marriage, and just when someone gets married, a lot of times they'll just default to the way that they saw their parents married,
Yeah.
or they parent
Yeah.
the way, you know what I mean? And it's like, well, yeah, well, okay. Or if you're in the military, they think that rank equals leadership, and you can't be a leader unless you have a certain rank or a position. I love this idea of breaking that mindset of the old traditions and going into it. So that's really cool about the camps too.
Yeah.
I like that.
And to your point, like I'm very fortunate that there are teams within the NFL who are open and want to have, first of all, like a woman come and speak on leadership. Not all teams are there yet. Not all organizations are there yet. And I spend my time with those who are, instead of trying to convince those who aren't to do it so otherwise. But bringing in this idea of leadership, especially to the rookies, is something I feel is really important, because again, think about, did you play sports? First of all, you give me somewhat sports vibes. Yeah. Okay. All right. What was your sport of choice?
I grew up in the South, so it was football.
All right. So the captain, right? We usually is going to either be the quarterback, or again, like the best player on a team is the captain. And it starts there. We look to that person. And I love watching all sports because I watch it from a different angle. I'm looking for the leaders on the field, and I'm trying to spot them. And I'm seeing, how do they communicate, with each other, with the opposing team, with the officials, and just watching for these moments of leadership. And
Yeah.
very often it doesn't come from the person with the captain's band on their arm. It comes from other players.
No, I agree. I coach Little League, and I see that all the time too. I've seen that in many offices as well. It's really just a leadership quality, is to like
Mhm.
recognize people and the value that they bring. What are your thoughts on a leader that uses the word or the phrase, "Hey, welcome to the family"?
If family is a value of your team, of your company, and is one that you actually live and it doesn't just stay on the wall, then that's fine. But I think for the most part, you're going to hear that phrase and you're going to very quickly be like, "Oh, this is a fucking dysfunctional family. I want nothing to be part of." Like that is, I just working with there's an organization that, they say they value family. Everything they do shows the very opposite. And it is just mind-boggling to me that people are okay with that, in the leadership. And I get very frustrated. But at the same time, EB, like we all are guilty of saying we value something, but our actions don't back that up. And so I can't, I hold myself to that same bar of accountability as I do anybody else. And I tell players this, I tell everyone I work with, is that no one else gets to lower your bar but yourself. And unfortunately, we see other people lower their bar of excellence, and we use that as permission to lower our own
Yeah.
and then blame it. Well, like they did this, right? I have kids. I
Mhm.
can hear times like, why did you hate your sister? Well, she did this. I'm like, cool. That's separate. It does not give you permission at all, right? So,
I need to take a pause because you said a very explicit word on my podcast.
well, that's right.
And like, I don't know if I should have warned the listeners, but you used the word accountability, and that's a very dirty word.
Well, it is. I mean, leaders take accountability. So the title of my book is Choose the Handle That Holds. And it comes from this idea, this kind of quote from Stoicism, where they say every situation in life has two handles, one by which it can be carried and one by which it cannot. The handle of blame, yeah, that's one that is going to break, right? But we grab that one because so often the handle that breaks is the easier one to grab onto. It's a much more, enticing and appealing one to grab onto, because the handle of accountability is hard to hold on to that at times. It's heavy, but it will
Yeah.
hold.
Yeah.
And when we start blaming other people, man, we get nowhere. It's really fun to take accountability. I got to say, if you want to, if you have a significant others, and unfortunately, I have an amazing husband who listens to everything I do, and so he'll hear this, and then so I'm ruining my own game in this one. But if you have a significant other in your life, and there's ever a situation where you're like, oh, this might turn to an argument, like they're really upset at you because you fucked up. If you just own it and take accountability and offer ways to like remedy it, like there's no argument. Like you just shut things down. And so often, like I promise you, the other person's going to be a little surprised by that and not know what to do. But it's really fun because all of a sudden you're like, I did, and they're like, like I had this
Or
whole
they get
argument
mad.
prepared. Yeah, I know,
or they get mad because they can't fight. They can't fight it out.
well, I know, because some of us do rehearse a fantastic argument. We have it down. So if you can say yes, and my husband's really good at this at times, then he will. He'll say, yeah, I messed up, and other times he's not the greatest at it. And there's times where I'm like, just own it. We can just own it. And the same goes to me. He just is incredibly kind that he never, reminds me of the times I don't do it. So he's good at that. But that's where I think accountability to me is not a dirty word. It is a word that gives us permission to keep moving towards success.
I want to back up first to you working with the NFL. I know you talked about in your book, like you weren't like this all-American college athlete that had some insight into sports.
So I think people are fascinating. I love people, and I'm always just up for a conversation. And I was coming back from giving a talk in Cleveland, Ohio. So I was in the Cleveland airport, and there was a gentleman sitting by me, and we just started talking, waiting for a flight, and found out he worked for the NFLPA, so the Players Association. So, and he, I was talking to him about my philosophy on leadership, all this stuff we've talked about. And he's like, you got to bring that to the NFL. And I was like, sure. Like, no problem. I'll get right on
pal.
that. And we became good friends, and he's fantastic. His name's Carl Francis. He's like, no, you got to come to the combine and reach out to these teams at a time. And so I did, and I showed up at that first combine a couple years ago, and I had only one meeting scheduled, and it was with Les Pico with the Vikings. And I could not have had. I got so lucky that it was with him, because he is just somebody who embodies integrity, and he's a leader. And so he liked what I had to say, and he's like, I want you to come talk to our players, and kind of grew from there. So it started, I met the right person who gave me the idea, and then I just fucking showed up. And just willing to do that and just put myself out there. And that's how I'm somebody who drives business people crazy because I don't follow the rules. I don't do things the way you're supposed to. And I can do that because I don't have an MBA. Like I never was taught the rules. And that gives you a freedom to do things, in a different way because you're not kind of burdened by the curse of knowledge.
And that's why I love the journey and the story of like this right here, because like you're living out your own beliefs. So what's the Amor Fati?
Yes.
Is that just flowing? Like, okay, some conversation at an airport leads to like a whole new aspect of business for you, or work for you, but also a whole new aspect of purpose.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I love working with athletes because they're driven and they can do the hard things, don't scare them. And I think we have done athletes wrong because they are looked up to as leaders, but they're not given the training, the education, the chance to really learn leadership. And so really it's not fair. And listen, I'm not a football expert. I'm not teaching them how to be better players. I'm teaching them how to be leaders on and off the field because we don't live in a like Severance, the show Severance, like
Yeah.
it's not reality. It's not. And just to let people know, spoiler.
Surprise.
But yeah. Like what happens at home follows us to work and vice versa. And you hear a lot, keep, home at home and work at work. Bullshit. You can't do it. So you need to learn how to, turn it to your benefit. Amor fati, it's Latin for love of fate, like embrace your fate. And this idea of don't just take the hits, but get stronger for them. Don't just say, well, it is what it is. It's no, like it is what this is. So let's do something with it.
Right.
That's why I wrote this book. You asked me that question that I never answered, which was, how did I get to write this book? Well, I have these businesses going. In January of 2024, I got injured during a jujitsu class. So I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I had somebody in a triangle choke, and he did not want to tap, and he stood up to stack me, and ended up falling on the back of my neck. And I got lucky. I could have been paralyzed. Hearing the sound of it, well, yeah, I play in a lot of talks I give, and it's pretty nasty sound here, a neck crack. And so I got lucky, just ended up long term with some like numbness on one side of my face, but I can walk, right? And I had to take about 6 months off of jujitsu and off of running and exercising the way I normally would. So I had this time all of a sudden in my day that I was not going to be going to jujitsu. Amor fati. Like, this is what fate has handed. This is where I'm at. What am I going to do? I'm like, all right. I've been talking about writing a book. I write every day on social media. People keep saying, like, you should write a book, put these all together in a book. And I hadn't done it. And now I had the chance to make a decision to use that time and write a book. Here's the thing, though. Writing a book takes a lot more hours than the time I was doing jiu-jitsu. It was not a one-for-one exchange of time at all. But if I did make that decision, that commitment, and got it done. So that's why.
Nice. Okay. So in the book, you share some of this story as well. If you're listening or watching this, you have to get this book. The SAFE framework. I want to touch on that, but I'm really interested in the rathers also. Where should we start with the framework? Okay.
I think they're fun. Okay. Yeah. And we'll lead to so and that goes hand in hand with Amor fati. So Amor fati is the phrase again, embrace your fate. And it's one that, I say to myself probably daily, or like my husband will text to me. I'll send him a long text of like all the shit that's like not going right. And he'll be like, Amor fati. Like, sounds like there's a great chance to practice Amor fati. Where I'm like, you're right, and fuck you at the same time. But that's what, like, we have the beautiful thing about having somebody in your life who holds you accountable, right? But there is a phrase or another word that I do often add to Amor fati. So it's not Latin, it's French, and it's motherfucker. Because there are times when, for me, and maybe it's not everyone's cup of tea, you don't have to add it. There's no rules. For me, I need it when life really fucking gets tricky, to be able to look at something like Amor fati, motherfucker. Because that right there, Amor fati, it gives me permission to move past and skip over all the time we normally spent on our rathers. And what our rathers are all the things that we wish were happening, but not, right? And this idea, and it comes from, so Theodore Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt, call him Teddy Roosevelt, like, we're just like buddies, like Teddy and I. But I love learning about him and I read about him. He's fascinating to me. And in one of his books, he writes about this camping trip he took, and it was just in Montana, and it was hell. The weather was horrible. He was with a friend. It was just one thing after another was going wrong. And there's one point on this trip where he looks up at the sky and sees that it's about to storm. And, he says that to his friend who's like whistling along. He was like, um, looks like it's about to storm. And his friend says, oh, and he says, like, I'd rather it not storm. And his friend stops whistling, looks at him and says, we're not getting our rathers on this trip. That phrase, that we're not getting our rathers. And I love that. And I definitely butchered that quote a bit. And but it is this idea of like, fuck, we spend so much time, maybe, on our rathers. Like, I'd rather this happen. And when we do that, we waste it. And what I love about Stoicism is, and again, like, Stoicism is so misunderstood. I feel so bad for it. It's like anybody named Karen. Like, I feel bad. I'm like, because there's amazing people named Karen, and they're like, someone hears the name, they're like, ooh. They hear Stoicism, and they're like, ugh, because they're thinking a little S stoic. No emotion, Queen of England stoic. Big S stoic, the philosophy, completely different. Like, say, I have emotions, but my emotions don't have me. And Stoicism is all about understanding what's in your control and what isn't, and taking everything that comes at you and turning it to your benefit. So our rathers are things, for the most part, not in our control. But boy, do we spend a lot of time on that stuff, right? What is in our control is what we do with this moment right here, right now, with what we got. So Amor Fati takes you from the rathers into reality. Right here, let's go.
I think why that's important, at least in in the context of this podcast, is I talk about personal resilience and I also talk about organizational resilience. I mean, that applies to both. In the family, you're thinking, oh, should I take this job? Oh, I'd rather have that job in that city. Or I'd rather my kid go to this school than that school. Or in the business context, yeah, I'd rather we, be at a different place with our advancements and our technology. I'd rather we have more software, blah, 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 right? And it's just that idea that how much of a time suck engaging with the rathers can be. How do you counter that mindset? How do you recognize or acknowledge, or how do you encourage people to pause and take a time out? Am I living with the rathers right now?
Yeah. I make the argument that, we often want to say the cliche, life is short. And I think it's less that life is short and more that we spend it passing time and not truly living. Like, it's the onus is on us on how we spend each day. Rathers, that's how you get stuck in passing time and not really living life. That SAFE framework is my framework for leadership. So S is strength to act and stand with integrity. A is agility to adapt to the needs of the moment. F is flexibility to reach for curiosity in adversity. And E is endurance to value the process over the outcome. And the reason it's all kind of sports somewhat related, athletic related, is I akin it to this idea. A lot of people go to the gym and they get the show muscles, right? They look strong, but there's no functional strength there. And I think that happens in leadership a lot. People are really good at saying the right things, getting those sound bites, right? But when put to the test, there's no functional leadership strength there. It falls apart. And you
Substance,
have to,
right?
yeah, absolutely. But to your question, so that falls under this E for endurance value process over outcome. I'm not against outcomes. I'm not anti-outcome. I am pro outcomes, the outcome that matters. And I think we make the mistake of not identifying the outcome that matters. And instead we go chasing the wrong one. And so if like, okay, the outcome that matters for this, this family vacation with our family, if the outcome that matters is we come home feeling more connected as a family, then when things don't go as you would like, right? When things like you get really stuck into be like, fuck, I'd rather like X, Y, and Z didn't happen. If you've already identified the outcome that matters, that is your thing. You can grab onto and hold on to that and realize, okay, what is going to help me achieve that outcome? Losing my temper? Nope, that's not going to end up with us being more connected, right? So it gives you something to hold on to, which is why, again, that to me, we need to be more deliberate in our kind of planning and debriefing and developing what I call the leadership reflex, which is the parent car arm. Remember that when you're a kid and like, you put, I don't know if I'll do it. You don't have to have a kid to do that arm when that you're about to like see an obstacle coming your way. Wine, beer, so it often needs protecting too. And so that leadership reflex, if you can put that arm out when you catch yourself feeling like triggered, right? Feeling an emotion that you'd rather not express probably outwardly, car arm yourself and pause and take that hot second to be like, is this an obstacle? Or maybe, is it actually an opportunity? You'll never find out if you knee jerk. So that leadership reflex of that's how you develop that pause.
Yeah. And I like that pause. And the endurance piece is fantastic. Just the engagement with curiosity, because you talked about that in the F, right?
Mm.
I think curiosity is underutilized. How does this really fulfill me? How does this really lead to purpose?
Yeah.
You talk about self-leadership too, which I
Yeah.
loved.
You
Like
you
that.
can't expect anyone to follow you or see you as a leader if you can't lead yourself. But listen, if you hang up the hat of leadership the moment you leave the office, well, you're not a leader. I don't think there's such thing as a I said this once and I regretted it immediately because I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to keep this going. But this idea, I don't think there's any such thing as a good leader or a bad leader. But yes, I still use the phrase bad leadership and good. But the reason I don't think there is such thing as a good or bad leader is I think what happens is people will utilize authority or power and status and call it leadership, right? But that's not leadership. Leadership inspires people to do better and be better. And that's good. That is good. But again, when it's tied to that job title, that allows authority and power to step in place of leadership. And it's a lot easier. I have kids. It's a lot easier to say, like, because I said so, or like no dessert unless you do this, right? To use that power instead of use leadership to slow down and explain the why and really really dig in on that. And the same goes to building resilience and getting to that point of not getting thrown off track, because you are able to turn to curiosity a lot easier to get all right, like what's happening here? That self leadership. I don't know how versed you are in ancient Greek on the language. There's one phrase I know in ancient Greek, which is gnote seaton. And gnote seaton is inscribed above the temple to Apollo in Delphi in Greece. And gnote seaton means know thyself. And it was inscribed in stone over 2,000 years ago. And the maxim holds true today. Like, we have to know ourselves, but we don't take time to actually know who we are. We don't like what even our values are. We will say what we're supposed to say, regardless if it's true. And I think we need to spend more time on that.
Yeah. And that, that path, that progress, the curiosity to the endurance, all that, when I come in and I'm talking about resilience, if I stay within that, I think that's how we get to this place beyond resilience, right? And
Yes.
like you mentioned that, and what does that mean, like to go beyond resilience?
When we stop at being resilient, we sell ourselves short. Because to me, like being resilient means bouncing back, like staying the same. Like you can take the hits without letting it break you apart, destroy you. I don't want to stay the same. I don't. I don't want to merely bounce back. I want to move forward. And that's where again that Amor Fati is. If I embrace it, when I'm hit with something really hard, the way to go beyond resilience is to use that hard and get stronger, to move forward, to use it to grow, to not be satisfied with being unchanged. And I think we get very nervous about change, good or bad, very uneasy around uncertainty, and choosing the handle that holds is the one of saying like, okay, I want to get stronger. So this handle is heavy as fuck, but I'm going to hold on to it and I'm
Yeah.
going to get stronger because of it and go beyond resilience on that.
I probably don't continue saying this enough. When I first started this podcast, I would always say, it's bouncing back from adversity, but learning from it in the process. And I guess moving beyond that now, like using this, it's like bouncing back from adversity, learning from it in the process, but also making the changes so you don't, fall back into that pit. I remember gosh, I'm going to butcher this, but there was like a poem of sorts when I was younger, when I was a teenager. I heard, guy walks down the street, doesn't see the hole, falls into the hole. The guy walks down the same street, sees the hole, still falls into the hole. Next day, guy walks down a different street. Yeah. And it's like this idea of how do I progress?
Yeah. And what I love about Stoicism is there's no enlightenment. So the Stoics are very clear on this idea that you're never going to be a sage. Like they'll hold kind of like Socrates
Dang
as
it.
the closest to it. But it's like, so you're not yet, like, they're like, you're never going to get there. Don't have that be your goal. Like, don't have that be the outcome that matters, right? And so, like, we're human. We are going to choose the wrong handle so many times. And what accountability allows you to do is like just own it. you're owning the moment. And every time we choose not to take accountability, we are forfeiting an opportunity to get stronger, right? To not only develop resilience, but go beyond it. And you're selling yourself short. Like, you're not protecting yourself at all. You're harming yourself. And that's where to me, I hold myself accountable, and I hold those around me, whether they like it or not, accountable. Many times they don't like it. No one does. But
So explicit.
we spend so much time on wanting to be liked rather than be trusted.
Mm,
And I
that's
don't
a
have
great
to
point.
even like you to trust you. But if you're going to hold me accountable, and I know that you hold yourself accountable, like, that's cool. Like, we can do this. We can really freaking hate each other at times even, right? But we trust each other. And that is how you get to where you need to go much faster.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard my wife say a few times, I love you, but I don't like you right now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I know.
there's that trust, right?
Right, there is that. And we need to just not get our panties in a twist about shit like that. I hate people being like, I am not a fan of walking on eggshells or a victimhood mindset and stuff like that, because I know my kids don't like me at times. I know my husband doesn't like me at times. And there's zero doubt in my mind that they love me. And as a leader, guess what? You're not going to make everyone happy. But if you have communicated and you've built that trust, then that's okay. But as long as you're chasing the likes, you're going to tell people what they want to hear and not what they need to hear. And that's the difference between nice versus kind.
I can definitely see what makes you so impactful in the work that you're doing today. And that's awesome. How do people follow you?
So social media, you'll find me on just about every platform. Eventually I'm so close to doing TikTok. Very close. So just my name, Becky Schmooke, looks like Schmooky. So I'm sure on you'll have it somewhere written. Click it. You can find the spelling there. Just look me up there. You'll find me there. And then my website is BeckySchmooke.com. And the good news about that is you can spell it the regular way of smoke, like it sounds, and it'll still take you there. But yeah, I write every day about mindfulness and leadership, and post videos of baby goats and stuff like that. And then the book,
Awesome.
please.
Yeah.
If
Very
you get the
curious
book,
about your
tell me
camps
what you
too.
think of it. Yeah. And if you're in Iowa, sign up for a camp.
There you go.
But yeah,
Becky
thank you
Schmooke.
so much for this conversation. You are a fantastic host, and you ask really, really good questions. So thank you.
Oh, thanks. No, I'm just trying to practice my active listening skills the best I can. So
You did a good job.
thank you so much for being a guest. And yeah, we'll stay in touch and look forward to seeing what's next for you.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care. All right, friends. That was Becky Schmooke, author of Choose the Handle That Holds. And hopefully this has encouraged you to consider, what are you holding on to? What is the truth that's going to allow you to be present in life? And I see that as a really important step is, how do you be present? How do you filter the world around you? Like, do you have an ability to process things in a way that keeps you healthy in your work and your personal life? It impacts both, right? And I think that was so important for us to discuss and have a dialogue about. Hopefully you're encouraged by that. And I didn't really read the subcaption of the book, but it's about living and leading and owning the moments of your life that matter, and just how important that conversation is today with so much noise and so many things going on around us all the time. Hopefully you're can find ways to grow from this. So check out the book, check out the website, look her up on socials, and follow that messaging that's just really just going to keep pushing you to think about what you're presently engaged with. And we'll keep pushing for resilience. We'll keep fighting the fight for resilience. And until next time, EB out here.